Emily, back to you. You penned an op-ed for CNN entitled, "No One is Coming to Save the Crypto Industry." Break it down for us to start with.
Sure. So this theme is becoming more and more prominent. You know, crypto, as you know, and Michael, you wrote about something similar. Crypto, the fundamental ideas of Bitcoin are decentralization and transparency. Bitcoin came into the world on the heels of the financial crisis, and the whole idea was to have a monetary system that did not rely on any one individual or entity, you know, a trustless system, so to speak. And now, of course, we have to say, you know, crypto and Bitcoin are separate, and FTX does not represent Bitcoin. These are two separate entities. However, the crypto industry, I argue, has sort of strayed away from this original ideal of Bitcoin, which is this decentralized system. Because what we saw with FTX and what we saw with Sam Bankman-Fried is that so much trust was placed on this one individual, and this one entity became so powerful that when it collapsed, we are now seeing the ripple effects throughout the industry. And I think we're going to see a lot more. So I think this is very dangerous and also kind of antithetical to the principles on which Bitcoin was created.
So Emily,
sorry, Lawrence, go ahead.
Well, you heard Octavio Marenzi just now just talking about that these institutions, everything from exchanges to custodial setups, et cetera, all came about after centuries of human behavior and market behavior, that these were basically efficient ways to do things. And it seems that FTX was taking on that role. But what do you think? Do you think that that's appropriate for crypto, or is there something fundamental, in your opinion, that makes it that, in fact, maybe Octavio is a little bit not correct on that it should be this decentralized thing without these exchanges and all the like?
The problem is that we've sort of seen humanity kind of trend towards centralization, and this is not unique to crypto. I mean, we see it in social media as well, right? Social media started out being like celebrated as this leaderless and decentralized revolution. And you look at Twitter. Now, obviously, Twitter is a company, but still, it's part of this industry, and now it's sort of subject to the whims of the richest man in the world. So in theory, yes, you know, people say they want decentralization, but the problem is when you have decentralization versus centralization, it's always that question of, you know, sort of freedom versus convenience, right? And centralization for a lot of people offers more convenience. You know, in crypto, you have the option, right? You can hold your own coins, but many people choose not to because they think, you know, what if I lose my password, or who can I call for customer service, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why exchanges have become so big. And it's a real tension because crypto is also trying to make itself more mainstream. And I think a lot of these newer investors are more comfortable with centralized exchanges than they are with cold wallet storage, for example. So that's part of the tension. But then you also have a very specific situation with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, where I think it just got ridiculously overblown, you know, one 30-year-old sort of becoming the white knight of crypto. And that really never should have happened.
Sounds like the French Revolution.
Thought here, Emily, and your thoughts on that. I mean, it seems to me, I've always thought this was a relatively elegant idea, just very difficult to put in practice, right? You can it's understanding the idea that we have a system that has all this trust in one individual, which, by the way, was monarchies before we recognized democracies were a better way, you know, ultimately leads to these problems. But we keep sort of falling back for the various reasons that you talked about. Is this an education thing? Do we just need to be out there talking and explaining why, in fact, if you diffuse this power, it's actually valuable? Or is there something sort of just more sort of brutal that needs to happen, regulation, et cetera?
I mean, you know, I've also sort of argued, and this is something similar to what Max said, I don't think regulators are going to save this industry, right? I mean, I think crypto, by definition, moves faster than regulators' attempts to regulate it. So I think this is something that the industry is going to have to do to a certain degree on its own. I think part of the solution here is making the decentralized solutions a lot easier to use and more accessible. I think one of the reasons why people sort of flock towards centralized options is because decentralized solutions, they feel that they are confusing or not easy to use, or the user experience is not as good as the centralized institution. So that's one way we could sort of work on it. But part of it, Michael, and you've written about this too, it's sort of a crypto culture thing, you know, the hero worship and the fact when you have these big projects that people criticize them and then those critics get shot down and there's a little bit of a herd mentality. I mean, that's something that I think the crypto industry needs to address on its own.
Again,
yeah, one of the reasons sorry, Lawrence. Yeah.
I would make the argument that this, what I just said about the French Revolution, kind of it just sounds like it repeats itself over and over again. Out of the chaos comes one strong hero who centralizes everything. In the case of Napoleon, and in this case, Sam Bankman-Fried or Elon Musk at Twitter, is kind of the model that you seem to describe here. That this is, in other words, always going to happen.
Yeah, it is one of the great reasons why I think crypto and blockchain is so interesting, because it grapples with ultimately these core issues of human governance and actually philosophy in many respects.